What's going on, everybody? My name is Tyler, and today is the third out of four preview videos for the NBA's conference semifinals. We've done the East already. The links to those two videos will be down below in the description. So far, those two series, by the way, very intriguing. Very looking forward to see how they progress. Now, we'll start with the Western Conference, as we now know who will the LA Clippers be taking on in the second round after the Denver Nuggets pulled out a Game 7 victory over the Utah Jazz. So I'll be previewing that series, giving my takes, and then ultimately giving a prediction. First off, we'll look at the LA Clippers, who took care of business against the Mavericks, but it was not an easy series by any stretch. They won 4-2, but honestly, I felt like it was a much closer series. The Clippers pulled out Game 1, 118 to 110, and they probably should have lost that game because Kristaps Porzingis got ejected on what was, let's be honest, a not-so-great call. I think they got robbed there. The Clippers then lost Game 2, 127-114. Won Game 3, 130 to 122, but that was the game where Luka Doncic hurt his ankle. Then they won. They lost Game. Yeah, won Game 3, lost Game 4, 135 to 133. That was the game where Luka Doncic hit that buzzer beater, so okay, that could have gone either way. Finally, they won Game 5, 154 to 111, straight out blowout. Finally, 111 to 97 in Game 6. But there were some things that we saw there. Marcus Morris is going to be a player. There's a lot of players on this Clippers roster that can be quote-unquote like fighters, very scrappy players. And that could be concerning if the Clippers want to go far in these playoffs because they got guys like Patrick Beverley who comes back healthy, or Marcus Morris who plays a big role, or Montrezl Harrell who plays with a lot of intensity. If they start picking up flagrant fouls or technical fouls, that could bode poorly for them in terms of a possible suspension in the conference finals or the NBA finals if they make it that far. Looking at the Clippers statistically, it starts and ends with Kawhi Leonard, who in the first round led the team in points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, and steals per game with 32.8, 10.2, 5.2, and 2.3, utterly dominant, while also shooting, by the way, maybe not great from 3, 29.4%, but 53.8% from the field and 85.5% from the free throw line. So very solid across the board. And the thing with Kawhi, it's like not even close in those statistical categories. Paul George was the second highest leading scorer on this team at 18.5, and he was just utterly terrible in that series for the first few games. Then came alive. I believe it was that Game 5 win. He's mentioned that he was dealing with some mental issues, being in the bubble and all that, which I completely understand, and now I guess regret saying, like, I wouldn't say making fun of him, but questioning like what is going on with him. But then Kawhi out-rebounded the next closest guy, 10.2 to 6.8, him over George. Out-assisted the next guy, 5.2 to 4.3. Out-stole the next player by a whole steal per game, 2.3 to 1.3. So if the Nuggets want to have a chance, it's going to be slowing down Kawhi Leonard. Plain and simple. Kawhi will just get to his spots and make buckets. So the key for the Clippers is they're going to need someone other than Kawhi to play phenomenally well, whether that be a Paul George, a Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell. Reggie Jackson hasn't looked great in these playoffs. So they're going to need players to step up and perform. Because also, looking at PER, Kawhi, 32.39 PER, just insanely efficient. It would be troublesome for the Nuggets if they just let Kawhi do whatever he wants out on the basketball court. By the way, the Clippers and the Nuggets, 3 games this season, the Clippers won 2 out of 3, so very solid. They lost their first matchup, then won the last 2, albeit that last matchup came a while ago. It was not in the bubble, it was in the bubble, excuse me. So maybe there is a little bit of a litmus test there. The bubble, that game was back in August 13th. So a game of 124-111, Clippers won, but a lot has changed since then. The Nuggets are getting healthier. Shifting gears to the Nuggets, they, like I mentioned, they won 7 games to the Jazz in what was a hard-fought series. They won Game 1, 135 to 125. Then they lose 3 straight, 124 to 105 in Game 2, 124 to 187 to 87 in Game 3, 129 to 127 in Game 4. And then they won 3 straight from being down 3-1. 117 to 107 in Game 5, 119-107 in Game 6, 80-78 in Game 7. So a very low-scoring game. I watched that game on Tuesday night. It was a very low-scoring game. It was a very interesting game, to say the least. And similar to the Clippers, there was one guy dominating the scoring, and that was Jamal Murray for the Nuggets. 31.6 points per game, including multiple games where he scored over 50 points. I mean, it was just utterly insane. The guy was extremely efficient as well. 53.3% from three, 55% from the field, 92% from the free throw line. I mean, he did not have a great Game 7, only 17 points, but he just really carried this team on his back. And let me remind you, Murray is not the number one guy. He is the number 2 guy, at least on paper, to Nikola Jokic. So the fact that Murray was able to just be so dominant in the presence of Jokic, because he also had 6.3 assists per game, mind you, Murray did, is just utterly insane. Jokic, by the way, didn't have a bad series himself. 26.3 points per game, 8.1 rebounds per game, and 5.4 assists out of the center position. Very solid there. And now they're starting to get guys back. Gary Harris, he's starting to come back from. He played in only 2 games during the series, but he's starting to come back. The one thing for them is guys like Michael Porter Jr., who had an amazing bubble regular season, kind of fell off a bit. He only had 12 points per game in 26 minutes per game. He got benched in the starting lineup when a lot of people thought, like myself, thought he should be starting 100%. Porter Jr., by the way, shot 41.7% from 3, 44.9% from the field, so still solid in that regard, but it just wasn't what we saw in those 8 seeding games for Denver. And I think Denver's going to want to win. Like I mentioned, they want to slow down Kawhi, but I think they're also, because they're going to have the disadvantage of being exhausted. They just grinded out a really tough 7-game series, only going to get a day's rest. They don't have to travel, which is good for them, but they only get a day's rest on Wednesday. They only had a day's rest on Wednesday because I'm recording. You're seeing this on Thursday, hopefully. So that day's rest might be beneficial to them, but it also might hurt them in the fact that the Clippers have had now more, just I think they've had 4 or 5 days at this point off just to recoup and prepare, because they knew it was going to be either Denver or Utah who they were going to play, so they could kind of game plan. And they also got one of the best coaches the Clippers do in Doc Rivers. That will be an interesting matchup, Doc Rivers versus Michael Malone in the coaching regards. But ultimately, if the Nuggets, I think, want to win the series, it's just they got to stick to their game plan. They can't try to force things. The Clippers, they're going to do what the Clippers do. Kawhi's going to get his numbers. Maybe Paul George will have a good game or two, or Lou Williams, whoever it is. They just got to stick to their game plan, and they will have a chance. I don't think the Nuggets win this series, however. I think this is Clippers series all the way. I have the Clippers winning this series in 6 games, 4-2. Simply put, because Kawhi Leonard is the best player on either team, so that helps right there. Secondly, the Nuggets, they just had this grinded-out series. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out slow and maybe lose the first game 1 definitely, and maybe even game 2. And it's very hard to come out of a 2-0 hole. I mean, we've seen it in the past, but it's very, very difficult to say the least, especially in a playoffs where you're playing every other day, basically. You're not getting those extended days of rest. But let me know what y'all think down below in the comment section. Will the Nuggets pull out this series upset, or will the Clippers make it to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in a long time? Thank y'all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you next time for when I preview the Lakers and either the Rockets or the Thunder, because that Game 7 is on Wednesday. I'm recording this on Wednesday, just to be clear. So thank y'all so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.